All right, thank you for having me. My name is Timothy Musoke. I am the CEO of Laboremus. I come from um, that part of the world known as the developing world, a land of foreign aid and hand-me-down ideas from other countries. Where is it? I come from Kampala. This is Kampala. And this is also Kampala. Today, as the host of the session, I'll be talking to you about Africa, not the stories that you're used to hearing, but a slightly different version. Now, believe me, the stories you've heard are most probably true, but today I come to tell you a different version. But before I do that, let me just give you a bit background on how I got into computers. So many years back, my dad used to run a media house, and he decided to buy a computer to help with content editing. I looked up his computer. This is actually the version. It was an Amstrad PC. The only problem is when he brought the computer home, no one at home knew how to use a computer. So a cousin of mine who used to live with us, an electrical engineer, decided to take on the challenge of learning how to use a computer. And I remember sitting very late in the night with him, just watching him do magic with his computer, or so it seemed at the time. So he would do many things, but it was until one time I saw him play chess on this computer, and I thought this must be the coolest thing I've ever seen. And being a teenager, obviously, I wanted to be as cool as him. And I knew there and then that my journey with computers had started. Now, fast forward, when I was done with high school, I moved into the United States in a state called Ohio, where I went to do computer science. Now, while there, I worked for this very little company uh, known as JP Morgan. And at JP Morgan, it was the first time that now I was getting an idea of how tech can be transformative. And I remember thinking, when I go back home, the use of technology would be something that is transformative for entire communities. And a few years later, after working in tech, I ran into these crazy Norwegians that you see on the screen. They liked technology and they liked animals in national parks. And they are also looking for someone who understands technology. And together, we decided to start Laboremus in Uganda. My story is not a unique story. It is the story of many African entrepreneurs. And the moral of the story is exposure equals opportunity. So, um, having worked for Laboremus for a few years, and at this point, we were making a lot of software for banks in Norway. At the same time, making software for banks in Uganda. We were starting to become quite impatient, and we decided that we need to try something new while we work for these banks. And we decided that we should do something that is impactful for the rural African population. For those who don't know what happens there, they are mainly into agriculture. And the number is about 80% of rural Africa is actually employed in the agriculture sector. In my country, Uganda, 30% of our GDP comes directly from agriculture sector. Now, what is disturbing is only 3% of commercial banking lending actually goes to this group of people. So you can now start imagining how development can happen with this setup. So we decided to solve this problem, and Imata was born. The goal of Imata is to provide access to loans and credit for over 250 million rural farmers in Africa. The journey didn't go very well. So it was, in fact, a catastrophic failure when we started. We set off to build a mobile app. And our thinking was this app would be able to be used by cooperatives or farmer cooperatives to provide us access to data. And the farmers would also use this app to apply for loans so that we can digitally disburse these loans to them. So we sat in our office, I remember, for many months, very enthusiastic and eager to roll out our financial technology. The day came when it was time to roll it out. We go to a cooperative like the one you see in this picture to show us the amazing work that we have been doing, and hopefully that they start using it. To our surprise, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have been surprised, the farmers couldn't use the phone or the app because obviously they didn't have smartphones. We just assumed Kampala smartphones, therefore rural villages, they will also have smartphones. And secondly, the access to internet was not as widely spread where these farmers live. So the farmers were off the table as far as the app was concerned. And then the cooperative as well, where these farmers converge to bring their produce, was also not able to use the smartphone. We're not able to use the app. And the reason for them was a bit different. They didn't want to use a small screen where they were used to writing in a big book on a piece of paper. They thought a small screen to enter data was rather very restrictive. They preferred much bigger, they preferred like a computer, for instance, in order for them to be able to enter the data. So our fantastic platform basically failed, and we had to go back to the drawing board. And obviously, we realized that we should have been using a user-centric design. It's not something we didn't know at the time. We actually knew it, but I think we knew it from rather a theoretical perspective, and we never thought about how can we actually put this in real practice. So off we went and started off all over again. And today, Imata collects data from these farmer cooperatives using computers, laptops. This is something that they find very comfortable. And what we did here is we had to understand a day in life of a staff, a manager of a cooperative, and try to build this application around the things that they do on a daily so that they don't feel like they're duplicating work, filling stuff in our application as well as on paper. This data comes to us into our cloud platforms, and it's combined with weather data. And out of that, we're able to predict the productivity of a farmer over so many months. And out of that, we are then able to know which farmer can be lent how much money and for how long. Now, on the extreme right, based on the user-centric approach we have gone through, we decided obviously that the people at office are able to use the super high tech, whereas the cooperative, we realized that actually they do have WhatsApp, so they use WhatsApp to onboard new farmers. And lastly, for the farmer themselves, we went extremely low tech. This phone you see in the picture is the most accessible phone in rural Africa, and farmers use it to apply for loans, but also receive the money. So I think the lesson here is if you don't design for the context, if you, in this case, you don't design for Africa because you just borrow things from wherever you get them, then you are guaranteed some failure, which we actually went through. And if you do, you are guaranteed some level of success. So remember this picture, or this picture that I showed you at the beginning. Something is common in this picture. It's mobile phones. The World Bank estimates that there is over 650 million phones on the continent of Africa and growing very fast. In fact, in some parts of Africa, people have more access to mobile phones than they do have to clean water, electricity, or bank accounts. And what does this mean? There is a lot of investment, tech investment opportunities on the continent. So here is some of the African unicorns. Opay, that you see there on the left-hand side on the top, is a super app like WeChat in China. Cheaper Cash and Flutterwave, the other two unicorns, facilitate payments on the African continent. And what you see that is common on this slide is these are all African entrepreneurs. They're using cutting-edge technology to solve the problem, and they're building it for the African context. My own company, Laboremus, is building digital onboarding platforms to help millions of Ugandans access bank accounts. This is important because over 60% of Ugandans do not have access to bank accounts. And on the other hand, Imata, the fintech that I talked about earlier, is using advanced digital analytics to provide farmers access to loans on their phones. These are some of the stories that I wanted to share with you. They are not the only stories, but I hope I've been able to give you a perspective of Africa that you're not used to seeing in the news. Thank you.